Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, we'll have Personal Appeals Part 1. If you have a personal appeal, please sign in, state your name, where you're from, and you have 5 minutes for your appeal.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Sure.
My name is Robin Slifer, and I live on Keystone Avenue in Emmaus. Love my neighborhood. We have a neighbor that, a resident at 414 Keystone Avenue that has been putting up what we like to call a spite fence. The fence is up. She's not breaking any laws. She put up a fence without a permit. We notified the zoning officer, Jim Farnsworth. He did mail them, to get the permit. So she extended a fence to the front of the house, which I have pictures, and she's been decorating it with very bright orange, very bright pink fluorescent tape that is weaved in and out. It's been there since September, and recently, January 19th, she added a bunch more. I wanted to know if there was any ordinances against, like, defacing property. To me, it looks like something that shouldn't be. Is there anything against? I have photographs of what it looks like, and my neighbors are here to support me. They look at it from across the street, and I look out my window, and I see this, and she does it out of spite. So
Can I have a copy? Can I have the photos, please?
There's a history behind it, but I'm not going to get into it this evening.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
See.
So what's the process for zoning if it's not approved? I don't know that there's.
Well, they can't.
If they have a fence permit, I don't know if there's
Yeah,
anything.
if it's consistent with zoning.
So
Property doesn't
if
zoning
you put the
process.
fence up without permit,
Then they
what
got
is
a
the
permit.
process?
It would be a zoning enforcement.
Yeah, they get a
zoning enforcement
violation.
Notice by Jim, a violation.
Which they got, and then they applied for the permit and got it because it met the requirements of the permit.
Okay, I see.
Her issue is the tape that's on the fence.
She keeps putting it on the front. It's
I don't know that there's,
I can't think of anything.
yeah, it's not necessarily.
people walk by the house, they look at it, shake their heads, and think, "What is this?"
It's ugly.
It's just ugly, we can't,
It's just ugly. We take pride in our properties.
nor can we regulate.
Is there anything you guys would like to add?
Pass it around.
We have 5 minutes. Yeah.
Like later.
Yeah, is the tape coming off? Is it coming under the yard? Or?
It comes over onto our property, and it also, she'll just keep adding more. This is the newest batch. When you drive by the house, it definitely is not something very pleasant to look at. Initially, long story short, she asked us to cut back our 30-year-old arborvitae in the backyard, cut off the overhang, which we did, and it's half a bush, so it looked horrible, because she was going to put up a fence around her backyard. And she never did, so we waited 2 months for her to put up a fence. She never did, so we ended up ripping out the arborvitae.
Excuse me, would you mind speaking into the microphone?
Oh, and then she, no, then she had decided to once we ripped out our arborvitae, there was no privacy anymore, so then she decided to put up a 2-foot wire fence without the permit, and we had notified the borough about it. But it didn't go around the whole backyard for her dog, so she just kind of put that up, and then she wove this tape in between it. And then, we let it go. We didn't want to, cause any issues. And then one thing led to another, and more fence went up, and more tape went up, and it just doesn't go away. So it's definitely an eyesore. We have no curb appeal at our home because of this issue. But when somebody asks you to trim back your bushes that you've had for 30 years, and we abide by that, to put up a fence that she could put in her backyard for this dog that she got, we did it. So, but no, nothing went up. There's nothing up. So it's only on our side.
Okay.
I did speak to an attorney, and they told me to attend this meeting tonight to try to get some resolution to this.
Well, so the solicitor and I were just briefly discussing it. I think we'll look into it a little bit more, but from an initial look, it is ugly, right?
Very.
But are they violating any laws or ordinances? Initial look without going through any research, the answer is no. And the problem is you don't have ordinances in town that regulate ugly.
Permanent, what about,
But it's not permanent. They can take that weave out, but
yeah,
we're not sure that there's anything on the books that we can enforce
Right.
that we can deal with it. And so, is it more a civil matter than a legal matter for us?
Right.
That's what I think.
yeah.
Mr. Dinkelhocker is going to have to take a little closer look at.
Okay.
But initial look, I mean, you go, oh,
It's like
right?
graffiti.
Why are they doing that, right?
Or a couch on your front porch, yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
The things that are easy to address, the couch on the
Yeah.
front
That's what
porch, the
counts.
graffiti,
Yes.
the.
Right?
Yes.
So I think we'll take a look at it.
Okay,
And
that's
quite
all I'm
honestly,
asking.
yeah, the problem is if the laws that we have can't address it, then
Yeah.
it ends up being a civil issue between neighbors.
Is there an ordinance when the fence is put in? She did put up a 3-foot white picket fence to extend out front. It's not in properly. She has it put together with black electrical tape, as you can see in the picture. And and the poles are leaning, and they're supposed to have 2 inches inside the property line, and the poles are actually leaning over towards our side. I mean, it's
And
just
so
like
how long
wondering-
ago was that fence put in?
Pardon me?
How long ago did they put that fence up?
That was probably the 19th. I have it written.
So just
down.
recently. So that probably is something that we can have our zoning officer take a look at as to whether or not that was constructed
Okay.
appropriately. And that's
Okay.
something that I think we can address immediately, right, Mr.
Yeah, I mean,
Dinkelhocker?
if there's a property maintenance code, there's basically gonna be 2 issues, and one is zoning. And as long as the fence meets the zoning requirement, which is usually gonna be where it's located on your
Right.
lot, there's not much you're gonna do about it.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's height restrictions, sometimes there aren't. The other issue might be that there's a property maintenance code violation with respect to some of it.
Okay.
But if the fence is leaning over and it's leaning onto your property, that's largely a private dispute as opposed to the borough. The borough's not really gonna get involved
Yeah.
unless there's an actual borough ordinance at issue.
Yeah, I know, I tried
And,
to read it.
and I
but
think your
yeah.
private attorney is saying to you that there's probably not much that he or she can do, which is why you were sent here.
That's what they said, to present it to you and see if
Yeah.
there's anything that can be done.
I
because-
think Jim Farnsworth, the code enforcement official, could take a look at the way the fence is constructed and see if that meets the requirements of the property maintenance code.
Okay,
And if it violates that, he could issue a violation notice. But in terms of color, in terms of the tape, you know,
it's,
yeah.
It's-
We,
she's
we
doing
can't
it on
regulate, we
purpose.
can't regulate, there's no law that allows us to regulate ugly
I understand
or
that.
spite.
You
know?
That's what I was wondering about, if there are any spite laws. There
No.
were, or depending on where you are, but that's something that apparently isn't anymore. Okay, did anybody want to say anything? This is the neighbor that looks at it from
Yes, hi, my name's Carrie Zobel.
Can you please, before you
Oh,
go any further?
I'm sorry, I had a question for Robin, one more. You mentioned that they have a couch on their porch, front
No,
porch,
I'm
back?
comparing it to, I'm comparing
Oh,
it to.
okay.
Yeah, we can deal with that.
Okay.
Well,
Anything else?
Robin, what was
That's
your
all.
last name again?
Slifer,
S,
Slifer.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, next appeal. And state your name and where you're from.
Sign in, please.
Are you signed in?
I did sign in, yes.
All right, perfect.
My name's Carrie Zobel, and I live at 407 Keystone Avenue, right across the street from Robin. And just basically here, just to support what she is saying, and yeah, just to reiterate that it just looks terrible for the neighborhood. So, thank you for hearing me.
Thank you. Anybody else? You want to speak? You have to go to the microphone.
Okay, do I have to sign in? Do
Yes, please.
you want me to talk, so, like, we're past our 5 minutes?
No, you're fine. Each of you have a 5-minute.
Oh, okay. I don't know, I've lived in the borough for 30 years and never had to deal with this, but. The one thing I think that we're dealing with is, she's been quoted very verbally, very loudly. I live at 410, so these individuals are between Dan and Robin and my husband and I. She's being very verbal as far as, I will make your life hell, is a direct quote. I'm sorry about the language.
Excuse me,
but-
can you just state your name, please, for the
Sure,
record?
Barbara Moore.
Thank you.
MOHR. So what we're dealing with, I think you even said it too, is a spite, you know, and she's been quoted that a lot. Like, we have a raised parking space that goes up to Ash, which is the alley, and my grandson parked his pickup truck in the back, and he had just hauled something and he had a hitch on it. The hitch ball, by this much, hovered over the end of our parking space, and she felt she had to come out and tell him, you need to move the truck, your hitch is over, you know, the end of your parking space. So it's very trivial, but when it comes to them, they had landscaping done this summer. She sat on our front porch, left drink bottle containers on there, then when they worked in the back, she sat on our back deck. So it only seems to be, if it's convenient for them, there's borders and border lines, but if it's not, they are very disrespectful in that reason. But she's very, the language is not appropriate a lot. The F word flies, they're fighting a lot, and a lot of it's outdoors. So, you know, there's a lot of disruption within the whole, and like I said, I've been here 30 years, never had anything like this I've ever have to deal with. And you can't, there's no rationalization. She just, explodes. Or they're throwing things or slamming doors and cursing and hollering and fighting outdoors. And, you know, it's just, it's a shame, really, because we have a beautiful town and borough. And we don't know how to handle this kind of interruption in our neighborhood. We used to have block parties, and everyone got together. We don't even come out in our yard anymore. In back. Yeah.
Okay, well,
So
if there's
it's a
truly a
shame.
disturbance to the peace, you can call the
Yes.
police department. Okay,
Yeah, the police have been there a couple of times already.
okay.
And
That's-
she rented the property for a while, and there was drug activity. We had the police
Ma'am,
arrest
there's-
them, and
there's-
those were
There's
removed.
really nothing the council can do
Yeah,
to address something like that.
yeah, it's, I know, but we're just looking to see if there's any kind of help we can get anywhere, because you can't rationalize with this woman. You really can't.
Believe me, as an attorney, I've heard a lot of that over the years.
Yeah,
If I might add this, there are very inexpensive cameras out there, and maybe, although it's not,
they've installed them and they've been
so it's probably a good
recording.
idea, because if you get anything that goes on, you can at least document it, and, I mean, I would say that's probably the only way to get her. Sooner or later, she'll screw up.
That's what the attorney said, it's a matter of time, so.
So sorry you have to deal with it,
Thank you.
neighbors and all, but we don't like hearing those stories because we feel helpless too, but you don't want to regulate every little thing that people do. You just really can't do it.
Yeah, But she's been very verbal, that she said she will, for spite, do anything she can to make
Oh,
our lives
we
miserable.
get people like that. It's
And I
not the
think she's
first time
kinda
we've heard it.
succeeding, You know? But, well,
So-
thank you for your time, I appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other public appeals? Hearing none, does anybody have a community minute to bring forward or a report on our weekend? Councilman Schubsta?
Yeah, I want to thank the Mass Arts Commission for putting on the Snow Blast this weekend. It was very crowded. I was down there, you were down there, I saw a lot of people walking around. A lot of traffic all day long. Carrie did a great job stepping in for Terry and running the festival. A lot of events were going on in all of the businesses, so, congratulations to the Mass Arts Commission on a nice event.
Thank you, and they didn't have to worry about ice melting this year.
No.
Now they do, but
Yeah.
just to tag along with that, the Historical Society really has done a nice job down there. If you haven't stopped at the Mass Historical Society, stop by there. I was there during the event, but they are open each weekend. And a lot of really neat things about the borough, and if you don't know a lot, they'll help teach you, and some really great volunteers run that place, so make sure that you stop in and say hi to them.
And if I might add, Councilman Anders, they are very passionate about what they know too, because they know a lot, and it's just really neat to hear how excited they are, because they know a lot.
Oh, and
They really do, and the things they have are unbelievable.
They constantly change up their displays in there, so you go in, a month later, it's a different display, so.
Yeah. And I just have to apologize that I wasn't able to make the Snow Blast, but I worked both my jobs both days, so it's just not possible. But one of these years I'll be able to get there, so. Anybody else with a community minute? All right, hearing none, we have a special presentation tonight. We have Cub Scout Pack 80, the Weeblos 2s from St. Anne's, I believe. And I guess they want to come up and ask a few questions of council, which is fine. You can state your name and what your questions are. But before you start, I just want to ask your Scoutmaster what the difference between a Weeblo and a Weeblo 2 is. Is the Weeblo higher or the Weeblo 2 higher?
No, Weeblo too. They've been Cub Scouts for 5 years,
Okay,
and so this is their final year as a Cub Scout, and then they'll become Boy Scouts in April.
awesome.
So this is one of their requirements, in order for them to move up to become Boy Scouts.
Great. And you can tell us your name and what questions you have.
I am Nicholas, and my questions are, what background or education prepared you for this job?
So I guess I'll start off by saying anybody who is 18 years or older and lives in the borough and is registered for at least 1 year may run, no matter what education you have. As long as the voters vote for you and put you in office, that's all that's required.
Okay. And what is the biggest challenge facing our community?
Biggest challenge now I'll let other people answer because everybody's answer might be different. But my answer would be always trying to maintain the services with the revenue that we bring in, the money that we have through taxes. It's always hard to balance that because there's always more expenses than revenue. So trying to balance that is the hardest thing in this borough.
Okay, thank you.
Did anyone else want to add to that, or is that covered? I would say that's the biggest issue, though.
The biggest challenge we have. Mr. President.
What's that?
I said, I think you summed it up well.
All right, thank you. Next.
I'm Riley Ford.
Hi,
and,
Riley.
What is the most important responsibility?
Anybody else want to answer that? I would say, fiscally is the biggest responsibility, I would say. Making sure that we spend the tax money wisely. Not be wasteful.
And how can citizens help you be more effective?
How can I say? Well, that's a great question. We have a lot of committees that the public is invited to join, and commissions. You heard one tonight about the Arts Commission. The Snow Blast that was presented this weekend was all done by volunteers, and that's the members of the community. So members of the community can get involved by joining these commissions, or just if they have time to help with one of these festivals or anything that we have during the year, they can help and join in. Another one is our Halloween parade. They're always looking for volunteers. But also just coming to the meetings, even if they come to one meeting a year and the citizens took turns doing that, just to keep an eye on or learn what's going on in the borough, that would be a great way for them to actually participate with what's going on.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Oh, Councilman Hart has something to
I
add.
would also add safety as a major responsibility of council through various means, the police, fire, ambulance, and our health bureau is in place to make sure the citizens of Emmaus are relatively safe.
It's a very good point. Anybody else want to add anything to anything?
I would just add feedback, like you said, from all of our residents. Sometimes there's two people sitting out there, and I love that tonight there's many of you here, and there's reason for that. And starting off young at your age there, coming to our meetings, and as you see your scout and troop leaders with you, you know, they're providing, as Councilman said, volunteering, and without them, you know, we might not have groups like yourself. So thank you to you, and that's what I would end on.
Thank you very much, guys. Small pack?
Yeah.
You have a small pack tonight?
Yeah, well, our den is just the two of them.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's,
Yeah.
they get one-on-one attention then, huh?
Pack is about 30 boys, but our den is just the two of them.
Well,
I'd like to add one thing. One of the best things members of the community can do is, instead of criticizing what we do here in council all the time, come with suggestions. And oftentimes we get some of the best suggestions coming from that podium there, with people suggesting maybe you could do it this way or that way. And it's always nice to hear that they're contributing with their ideas. So that's another thing to add. All right. Thank you, guys. You're welcome to stay if you like, or you can move on to bigger and better things at home. At this time, we have the reading of the minutes. Would somebody like to make a motion to approve the council meeting minutes from January 21st? Councilman Schubsta, seconded by Councilwoman McManaman. Any questions or additions or corrections?
I can vote, correct? I read them, I watched
Yeah,
the thing,
yeah,
I can
you're
vote,
on.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
The beauty of the video is if you watch the video, you can verify that the meeting minutes are accurate, so.
I'll make sure.
All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. There are 7 ayes. We do have a decision on bids tonight. We have the police department HVAC system. We have bid results. And there is a recommendation to accept the low bid from Remco Incorporated for $48,823. Is there anything else that you need to add to that, Shane, or does that cover it?
No, that'll be all. There will probably be some change orders to it. However, we have to take a look at a few things, but our recommendation is we received 2 bids, one from Remco and one from Leibold Incorporated. They are very close together, which means the information that we gave was obviously understood the same by both. 1 or 2 other bidders had declined to bid because they couldn't meet the warranty that we were requiring. So our recommendation is to accept the bid from Remco.
And the difference was $600, so that's pretty darn close for $49,000 and $48,000. So, is there a motion to approve this?
So moved.
Councilman Hart, second. Councilwoman Baumgartner. Questions or discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. There are 7 ayes. Moving on to communications, we received a letter from David Bocchino from 28 West Burger Street requesting appointment to the zoning hearing board. I understand he was interviewed and recommended from, was it the CRD?
Health sanitation.
Health and Sanitation. Councilman Schubsta, would you like to place that in a form of motion?
Yes, I'll place that in form of motion.
And what is
to
the
recommend.
term? Let me scroll down
It
here.
was to 2020? Wait.
think it was Ron's turn.
Or is it?
2022.
It's under your committee notes.
Yeah, I'm looking for it.
Yeah, I got it.
You got it? Okay.
Yeah, expires 1/1/2022.
All right, just motion on the floor. Is there a second? Councilman Anders, questions or discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. There are 7 ayes. We received a letter from Brian Zabo, a letter of resignation as a full-time paramedic with the Emmaus Ambulance Corps effective February 28, 2019. In his letter, he said he has a new job opportunity in North Carolina. So we'll wish him the best of luck.
Yeah, I think, as a matter of reference, I think that we're gonna try to look inside, at, possibly promoting our a part-time employee. I think we're gonna post it internally, to,
Fill his
to
position.
fill the position. We have had a lot of bad luck in hiring from the outside for full-time paramedic jobs, just because the demand isn't there, and everybody's doing everything they can to hang on to their full-time paramedic. And we have some, I think, very good talented people that are part-time paramedics that we can create I think a large enough pool that council can interview and hire from. So I think that's probably the route we're gonna go. We're gauging interest from our part-timers right now, but I think that's most likely the route we're gonna take.
He was a relatively recent hire.
Very
I was
recent.
gonna say, I thought we
Yeah.
just, okay,
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, that's just,
I'm good, I just wanted to make sure it was the same person.
and that's the second one from the outside, I think, that we've hired that wasn't tenured very long. And the pool, for a lot of reasons. I mean, first of all, if you're gonna go to paramedic school, why not go to nursing school? If you're gonna go to nursing school, why not go to PA school? If you're gonna go to PA school, why not be a doctor, right? I mean, that's kind of the mentality that a lot of these health professionals are starting to take. So a lot of people aren't going just to paramedic school, they're taking the next step to be a nurse, because there's a major pay grade difference. And so, there's a lot of demand with very little supply out there for full-time paramedics. And when we're competing with everybody else under the sun trying to hang on to their people, it's a tough act. So we're gonna try to look from within.
We don't have to accept the resignation, right?
No.
Okay. All right, and then we received a letter from Donna Weaver requesting appointment to the Recreation and Entertainment Commission. Was she interviewed yet?
No.
What committee will handle that?
Parks and Rec.
All right, that will be turned over to Parks and Rec. Did anyone else receive a letter of communication they want to bring forward?
I did.
You do? Go ahead, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. This was addressed to me, and I received it Saturday afternoon. To the officers that responded to a no-heat call on South 12th Street, kudos to going above and beyond. I'll assume elderly, and I have no clue on her family life, if anyone nearby. I'm just a delivery driver for Jaegers. I just wanted to pass along my gratitude for someone to be there until the tech replaced a motor. Excellent community service, back the blue. Michael Muller, Jaegers driver.
That's great to hear. As you know, it's been reported in the newspaper that there is somebody that had the same situation, but unfortunately passed away from it. And it's important when you know you have elderly neighbors to check in on them. Don't assume that their heating system's working or that they have somebody that's checking in on them. It's important. Even if everybody just checked in on their own neighbor, it's important. So it's nice to hear that was, I mean, it could have very well saved that person's life.
Absolutely, it could have.
It's nice to hear. All right, Borough Engineers report,
We do have an engineer tonight.
but no report, right? You want to report progress?
I would just like to report that, as you all should be aware, the 10th Street culvert is finally completed. It's open to traffic. There are a couple of things that are what I would consider very minor deficiencies and being put into what we call a punch list for the contractor. We're working on a review of their final payment request for the work that's been completed to date. Just as a footnote, the final site restoration is deferred until we get into springtime, so the contract is not going to be issued a certificate of complete substantial completion. It will receive a partial certificate, and then the contractor will come back in the spring and dress up the lawns and surrounding areas, and probably at that time deal with the minor punch list items that we have from the construction construction. We appreciate everyone's understanding along the process. There was a lot that had to be unknown going into it. The soil bearing capacity below the stream bed and below the foundations had to be determined once we excavated to the foundation level. There was extra structural fill that had to be placed, but I believe by having enough contingency work items and budget in the original bidding amounts, we should come fairly close to the awarded contract amount, if not a little bit less. So, thank you all for understanding the process of getting a major element moved out of the way so that things can get done and have something that will be a long-term improvement for the borough.
I drove over it, but I didn't get to see too much because it was covered with snow. But thank you for that update, appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Solicitors report.
Yeah, just real brief, we've had no appeal by Mascaro on the decision on the preliminary injunction. That doesn't mean the case is over. The complaint is filed. There are preliminary objections that remain to the complaint. We'll see what Mascaro does if they withdraw the complaint and end the litigation. I don't want to make any prediction. And with that, I'll report progress.
Don't want to jinx it, do you?
I don't want to go on record.
Unfinished business part 1, we have nothing. New business, we have nothing. Unfinished business part 2, we have nothing. Items not on the agenda, does anybody have anything to bring forward? Hearing none. Mayor's report.
Thank you. Just one quick item. I'd like to thank the Mercantile Club for their recent donations to our emergency services. I don't know if you saw that article in the paper. Each department received $3,000 from the club, so I'd like to publicly thank them at this point. Other than that, I'll report progress.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Committee reports. Public Works Committee, Chairman Anders.
Nothing for official action. Our next meeting is February 13th at 4 p.m., and I'll report progress.
Thank you. Health, Sanitation, and Codes Committee, Chairman Schubsta.
Yes, nothing for official action. In your iPads, there's a reference to the Knaus Homestead. We'll be moving that letter to our committee level to discuss that first before we bring it to council.
Okay.
And then in our notes, I just want to go over a few things. We met with Whitetail at our meeting. And the first thing that we got from them was the fact that the call volume that we receive has diminished to practically nothing. So that was a very good sign. It's positive, right, for that
Very
one?
positive.
Very positive. He was, the gentleman we met with, he went over a few things that I just want to kind of, they're more like housekeeping rules to help our residents out as far as recycling goes. We talked about the recycling efforts in the borough. We talked about the fact that we recycle all bottles, cans, and paper. The one thing that was brought up to us was in regard to shredded paper. He asked that we do not put the shredded paper into the recycling bins. He says that's considered compost.
Well, and believe it or not, the reason
And it
is-
gums up his machines.
Well, it's not his machines, it's the recycling company's
the
machines.
recycling center.
People think that shredded paper is recyclable, which we would all think that.
Yep.
He said the reality is these recycling facilities are throwing it right in the garbage because it gums up their machines. It's not feasible for them to spend the time
Yep.
for what it's costing them to unclog their machines, fix their machines. He said so. Almost every recycling company out there is just taking them and putting them right in the landfill. So.
Yeah.
It was surprising that.
Yeah, he said that.
Yeah.
And he said a lot of people put, and I know they're trying to do the right thing. They're shredding the paper and they're recycling it, but they're putting it in plastic bags also. So, again, plastic bags are not recyclable, unless you're going to, be taking them down to, Weiss markets where you can recycle them. So that was the one thing that, I wanted to bring up about the fact that, the shredded paper was one of the incidences. The other thing that he brought up, and I looked up some information on it, was, the contamination. What he means by contamination is that the bottles and the plastic, if you're not washing them out, they're considered contaminated. So, one of the issues they were running into is some of the recycling centers are starting to push back on that, on the contamination that they're receiving. on the recycling. So they're going to keep pushing back on that. And that was one of the issues that was brought up. He said that was one of the things that China said was, a lot of the stuff coming from us, the United States, was contaminated, was about 25% contaminated.
Yeah, so what he's saying is these recycling centers, if there's too much contamination in that load, they will deny the whole load, and again, it goes right back to the dump. So they're asking, take a little bit of time, wash out your jelly jar before you throw it in the recycling bucket, wash out, dump your soda out of your soda bottle. If you're gonna take the time to recycle, then just take a little bit of extra time and clean it out, and we're all guilty of that. I think probably everybody in the room would have to say that we're all guilty of it at some point, but he said what it is, it's an education thing, because we're all used to being able just to do that. And the reality is these companies are now pushing back to the point of they're just rejecting entire loads, and they have nowhere to take it other than to the dump.
To the dump, yep. And that's what he, and like he said, it is an educational thing. And I bring up the fact that plastic bags are not recyclable. If you'd like to recycle your plastic bags, I know Weiss Markets has a
Giant
collection
also.
right in the front. Yep, and then you can.
But
just
only
get
the
rid
number
of-
2 plastic bags. Don't be mixing your number 4s in there. Like a lot of department stores have a thicker
Yeah, it's
plastic
heavy.
that's not the same. It has
It's
to be
the
a number
gro-
2
it's
for the grocery
ones.
stores.
Yeah, the real thin ones. So that was something he had mentioned also. Another thing that we brought up, and this is just another house cleaning thing, is in regards to cardboard. It makes it a lot easier for their haulers if we break down the cardboard and put it into a larger box, as opposed to them chasing individual boxes all over the place. He did mention, which I found shocking, is that the really small boxes annoy them because they can't get them into the
Yeah, again, the
compressed-
recycling companies,
Yeah,
we're
the
learning all
recycling
sorts of things that we
companies,
never
yeah.
heard before.
I was like, oh, really? Don't like small boxes?
But they say the
But-
Amazon boxes are their worst enemy because
Yeah.
they get stuck in when they're bailing them in the process
Yeah, they
machines.
fly out.
They fly out.
So, yeah, it would be helpful if our residents did that, just broke down the boxes into a larger box, and it's easier for the hauler to come and just grab that and pick it up. The other thing he asked also is, in regards to large items, meaning a sofa or a mattress, that they take the time to call ahead to notify before the pickup. He's aware that, it happens, it's gonna be the springtime, people will be cleaning out stuff. So it fills up the truck a lot faster if we're putting in like 6 or 7 mattresses. So he asks that if we're going to do that, they'll still take the items, but they ask that you call ahead. So it was a great meeting. It was a lot of information, and, he's very happy with the work that he's doing here, and he's happy with being in Emmaus. And I'll report progress. Our next meeting is scheduled for February 27th at 4:30 PM.
So I have 2 comments.
Yes.
Maybe 10 years ago, I asked the same question, do we have to rinse out the cans and the jars and the bottles? And the answer was surprisingly, no, you do not have to do that. You just have to throw it in your recycling bin. So that's a change. And the second thing is, what was the last item you just mentioned? I'm sorry.
The large items?
Yeah.
Mattress.
That's something we never had to do. You just put it out and they took it, mascara or wherever. And
Yeah,
if
they
we were
never-
supposed to do it, I haven't been doing it. But I just think that we should do as a do's and don'ts sheet and mail it to our residents that they can put it on their refrigerator to reference, even having the phone number. I know.
It's already prepped for our next newsletter.
Yeah. Yeah.
So hopefully it's something that can come out that we can post on the refrigerator or something, and we have to just, geez, I'd even be interested in doing a robocall saying, please pull out your, pull that out so you can reference it, because some people just throw it right in the recycling bin.
Well, and Mr. Lambert, you're absolutely right. Well, I mean, one of the things that we spoke about even at the meeting is, it's all about education and driving it home and keep on going with that education piece of it, because things have changed. I mean, we started telling the public this a year ago about the recycling world has changed and the different requirements have changed. And every time that you change a hauler, different things have changed, like the large items. And their thing is they take a separate truck to pick up the
Yes.
large items. It doesn't
Yep.
just go into, the same truck they pick up your regular garbage with, so.
And it's a very small truck.
But you know, we're learning things with this recycling piece that, I think we're gonna keep learning, and as the recycling world keeps on evolving, you know, I think things will keep changing, until, you know, I mean, with China closing and basically shutting the US off, that's changed the game, because like you said, we never were really told that you have to wash out everything, but
No,
now they're cutting it off at the local level, not just at China or North Carolina or wherever else they take it, but like the local plants are rejecting the haulers' loads right up front. So that means that, you know, it really starts at all the way back at the household level, making sure that, you know, the items aren't contaminated.
well, I always wonder, let's say you put I don't know, a can of spaghetti sauce or something in your recycling bin and you don't wash it out. I always thought to myself, well, if you're not allowed to have cardboard that has pizza stains on it or something, if
the
they're
difference?
commingling and they're throwing it in a truck and it's getting compacted, what's to prevent that from getting on the paper and the paperboard and the cardboard?
Can I comment to that?
Yeah.
So a big part of that, though, is that the stations, the haulers actually have washing. So years ago, we actually had a hauler that would wash out our contents.
Okay,
So that's
So that
why we were
explains that.
allowed years ago to do that.
okay.
And then as the years went on, the hauler doesn't have that capability anymore. The haulers we choose, or they've trimmed costs as well. But it's an education process because, you know, one year you can, and, you know, it does start at the hauler though, and how good the hauler is.
Another question I have too is, before Mascara got the bid, we put in there, at my request, because I read somewhere that 90% of the recyclers were recycling the half-gallon milk cartons with the, you know, the little plastic, you open it and pour it out of there, the half-gallon orange juices and all that. It's like paperboard, but it has like a wax coating on it.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
So
yeah,
there's
the
a
old school
special name for those containers, which I cannot recall, but we had that in our contract for Mascara to be able to take them. Are they able to take those? I mean, those are just all questions that if we,
That's still in the contract, nothing like that changed.
okay.
Yeah.
Nothing like that changed. I mean, not that there's a whole lot of cardboard milk containers out there anymore, but,
Well, the half-gallon containers are like orange juice
Yeah.
and milk, there is
yeah, they
that.
do have some of those still, I guess.
So, all right. Oh,
I was just gonna say, those were really useful tips. It'd be valuable to have them on at least our Facebook, the borough Facebook site.
Sure.
Like just some
it's on the website
reminders
though,
that are
right?
rolling out.
it is on the website, but Facebook would be a good idea
Yeah.
too. All right.
Got that,
Any more
Jerry?
questions?
No, that was a lively, that's the most excitement we had tonight.
All right, progress.
Thank you.
That was the most lively meeting he's probably had in 7 years, too.
Are you kidding?
Parks and Recreation Committee Chairwoman Baumgartner.
So nothing to report for official action or discussion. Our next meeting is actually tomorrow, February 5th at 4:30, right here, Progress.
Thank you. Public Safety Committee Chairman Dufresne.
Nothing for official action. Report progress. Our next meeting is February 13th at 9:15 a.m.
Thank you. General Administration Committee is myself. We have the bus shelter license agreement, which is with Lanta, and I'm assuming it's a yearly agreement, Shane?
I think it's a multiple year agreement.
Multiple year?
Yeah, I haven't seen it in years.
5 years.
5 years.
So this was something that came in front of you, and we put it over to the solicitor. They have negotiated that agreement, and are good with the verbiage in it.
All right.
So Solicitor Demick recommends adopting the agreement.
Would somebody like to make a motion to recommend or pass the bus shelter license agreement? Councilman Dufresne, second by Councilman Schubsta. Questions?
Shane, are they intending to make some shelters? Do you know? I mean, like, there's some areas that I don't see how they could.
So we thought this was a complete waste of time
Right.
in the end, just because there are no shelters in
They're not.
Emmaus.
So that's why I'm asking this question.
But since they went back and forth on the agreement, if they do, the provisions in place.
Okay.
Okay, so even in every municipality that they don't have a shelter, but they have stops, if for some reason they decide that they're going to build a shelter in place, this agreement will govern that.
Okay.
But no, there are no shelters
Yeah,
in
I
place.
know, that's why I was asking. Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. There are 7 ayes. Next meeting is on Valentine's Day at 9 o'clock here in council chambers. So I have 2 meetings on Valentine's Day now.
Were you Valentine?
You're in a doghouse.
You gotta bring me a
Maybe
card.
instead of a rose, I have to get a dozen roses. Budget and Finance Committee, Chairman Hart.
Thank you, Mr. President. As mentioned earlier, in our earlier meeting, we have one action item, Council Resolution 2019-9 for the bills for the month totaling $872,509.91. Need a motion for approval.
There's a motion by Councilman Hart. Is there a second? Councilman Dufresne? Questions or discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. There are 7 ayes.
As mentioned earlier, there will be his second Valentine's Day meeting at 3:30 in council chambers on the 14th. I report progress.
Thank you. I do have time in between 11 and 3:30 if somebody else wants to throw a meeting in there.
Is that a challenge?
If it includes lunch, maybe.
I'm
Community.
not getting your roses.
Community Relations Planning and Development Committee, Chairwoman McManaman.
Yes, thank you. We have several actions, or several action items for this evening. The fields at Indian Creek, Mr. Solicitor, it's my understanding that the recreation contribution waiver was included in the upcoming resolution. Is that true?
Yeah, that's right. They're all together in one document.
Okay. So we have Resolution 2019-5, the Fields at Indian Creek Phase 4 and 5 Final Plan Conditional Approval. And Mr. Solicitor, I'd ask you to take it from here.
Okay. So what we would do, gentlemen, for Indian Creek, if you want to just come up real quick, and if you want to make any presentation, while you're getting ready, let me just bring council up to speed. And this particular resolution approves conditionally phases 4 and 5. So we have approved phases 1 and 3, or 1 through 3 previously. 4 and 5 involve 85 lots. 14 of them are in the borough. 10 of those lots are in Phase 4, and 4 of those lots are in Phase 5. The plan was reviewed by the Borough Planning Commission on November 8, 2018. The Borough Planning Commission recommended conditions of approval. The conditions are pretty minimal because since this is a phased plan, Borough Council a long time ago approved the underlying preliminary plan. So the basic outline of the development has already been approved. As was mentioned, the only thing that's really unusual about this particular plan tonight is that there is a waiver request. The waiver request is that the borough waive the recreation fee that it is entitled to receive with respect to the 14 lots in the borough. I'm not sure how much the fee is. Brad, you might know. But whatever that is, multiply it by 14, and that's what you're asked to waive. As I understand it, the grounds for the waiver is that there will be a relatively expensive undertaking out on Cedar Crest Boulevard for a pedestrian crosswalk, and the developer is looking to offset some of that cost by waiving the recreation fee. And as I also understand, the trail that is part of the recreation and is open to the public would cross at that point. That's my recollection. So there's a connection between the request to waive the recreation fee and what is actually being constructed out on Cedar Crest Boulevard. So with that background, Lou and whatever, okay, we'll turn it over to Lou Rauch, who is the engineer representing K Builders.
Okay, Lou Rock from Lee Engineering, and with me is Richard Brooks from the Fields Indian Creek LLC. We're not really here to make a presentation. We've been before you folks for phases 1A, 1B, 2, 3, 4, 5 now. So we've been here a long time with the plan. Plan hasn't changed. It's for the fourth and fifth phase, as Solicitor Dinklocker has mentioned. And we're looking for the final approval on it. We are scheduled to be before Upper Milford Township on Thursday night this week with the same request for final approval on phases 4 and 5. And otherwise, we've also had the waiver request for the recreation contribution. And it is the point where we have the trail that at one time was the golf cart path for the Old Indian Creek Golf Course that we made improvements to and put some macadam in, and we replaced the bridges along that pathway and kept it open to the public, and it comes out to the intersection at North Street and Cedar Crest. And at that intersection, we were asked by folks at the Planning Commission, I think around phase 3 or so, to consider the possibility of putting in some pedestrian crossings at that intersection. At that time, we take it under consideration, talk with PennDOT and see what exactly PennDOT would require for that to happen. And we did get a response back from the permits department, and it's going to be a case of updating the pedestrian signals and also upgrading the handicap ramps at the intersection and everything else. So it's one of those things you ask for, and it just kind of seems like it spirals the cost on it. So as a fact of that, we would like to get relief from the recreation contribution short, since we are providing that path for overall use by Emmaus as well as residents of Lower Macungie and everyone else down there to use that path. And with that, we'll take questions or anything.
So I have a question. Where does the recreation trail connect to Camp Olympic somewhere? Is there a connection there?
I don't know, honestly, if Lower Macungie has gone through. It actually leads up to Olympic Drive, I believe it is, up on Indian Creek Road, that it crosses Indian Creek, goes to Olympic. And I know Lower Macungie was talking about getting a path put in
Right, that's
from
why I'm
Olympic
asking,
across.
because I thought the intention was eventually, it will, with the new Wall Trail, it will go across Cedar Crest and then onto your trail and hopefully over into Camp Olympic, and then from there, it goes all the way into Lower Macungie, which
Right.
would be fantastic. So I didn't know where that was at this
Yeah,
point.
I'm not sure either, but I know Lower Macungie talked about making that connection, so I don't know whether that was done or not.
Councilman Dufresne.
So again, I think I'm pretty clear in this. So the waiver's being asked because of the trails that you've already done there. We're gonna make that intersection safer essentially by putting that crosswalk in. And I obviously assume that costs a lot more than what we're waiving, would be my assumption.
Also, if we were to do that, we would be paying a state wage, which will take that and jump it by another 30%. Their cost on that, you see that in the recreation contribution waiver request. Their cost on it is $43,000.
I just wanna make sure the residents heard that.
Yeah. Now, Mr. Yas, what was, do you know what the number offhand is on the recreation waiver?
I believe that the ordinance does not set an actual amount, that it's negotiated based on current conditions typically. In years past, it probably started in the range of $1,000 per new unit, residential unit. But I'm pretty sure that as additional subdivisions have occurred in the borough, the amount has increased since the time of that first interpretation. We do have the cost opinion from the developer's engineer citing the figures that were just mentioned, $43,185. In reviewing that, we suspect that once the final review by PennDOT is completed and the final design of the intersection improvements for the pedestrian heads and signal updates, as well as the work on the ground, there will be work in the paving and adjacent areas. We suspect that it will probably be more. So on a per unit basis, you're looking at over $3,000 per unit as compensating improvements that are proposed by preliminary intersection drawing and corroborated with the listing of items and estimated costs that we've been provided.
And this is a checklist item for us. This is an intersection that has been at the top of our conversations for a long time at the public safety level. And the idea that, they're willing to do it, but, in return, they're asking that they don't have to pay for the recreation fee. The planning commission, at their recommendation, felt that that was a fair trade-off.
And this is a waiver only for phases 4 and 5. The waiver does not extend to any homes that might be constructed in phase 6, which is the remaining phase. So, in fact, that request had been made to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission rejected and said, we'll limit it to phases 4 and 5, which is 14 units total.
Is there a time frame that these upgrades would be completed, and/or when the phase 4 and 5 to be built out?
Roy, they're part of they would be part, the way the resolution is drafted, these improvements become part of the Phase 4 and Phase 5 improvements agreement. So the way the resolution is drafted, Lou and Richard would submit on behalf of the developer to Brad for review the plans for this intersection design or for this pedestrian crossing design. They would ultimately be approved, and they would be constructed, and the cost estimate would fall under Phase 4 and Phase 5.
Right, now I'm saying, is there a timeline, is it a year, are we talking 2 years, is there any?
Well, you would have to complete in order to be able at some point before Phase 4 and Phase 5 is done, work would have to be done.
Before phase 6.
That's the easiest yet. That's the shorter way to say it. But I'm paid by the word.
In reality, it's something like this will be at the end of the phase.
Right.
So it could be, as fast as they can sell their houses and build them. That could take 2 years, 1 year, it could take 3 years. It could take months.
We've been quite lucky.
Right, I know you've been, selling fairly well.
I would also add, I'm just looking at our subdivision and land development ordinance right now in section 22-511. The cash fee in lieu of the contribution of recreation land is $1,000 per lot or dwelling unit. So we're waiving $14,000 to help defray the developer's costs to do this. So that's the dollar amount at issue, assuming that 1,000 is the current amount, which is what your ordinance says.
And we appreciate their willingness to do this.
Oh,
They haven't fought or pushed back, like they.
I just wanted to make sure, that's what I wanted to get
Yeah,
out.
we
weren't just waiving this
No,
for the sake of waiving.
we had made the request, we had asked them, and it's not something that they were necessarily pressured. They reacted with, they would definitely take a look at that, and we certainly appreciate the fact that, they've committed to doing this. But, the return is you waive the $14,000 to get the $45,000 or $50,000 improvement that we've been longing to get. Otherwise, start budgeting $50,000 out of our own funds to do that project, because that's something that we've been wanting to do.
Yeah, I think we know where we're going with this vote here. I have a question, though, that has nothing to do with this. Just curious, out of the purchasers of your Indian Creek Village there, are most of them coming from the valley, or are they from out of town? Out of state, or mostly Lehigh Valley residents moving in? I was just curious. Nice, okay. All right. So we have Resolution 2019-5, a resolution conditionally approving the Phase 4 and 5 final plan for the fields at Indian Creek. Is there somebody that would like to make a motion to approve the resolution? Councilwoman McManaman, seconded by Councilman Anders. Questions or discussion? I think we took care of that. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. There are 7 ayes. Thank you, gentlemen, and best of luck.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. The next item, Resolution 2019-8, Wawa preliminary final plans for conditional approval. May I ask the developers from Wawa to step forward to the podium? And Brad and Tom, I'll ask you to lead this process.
Okay, I'll just start it again briefly. We have a resolution tonight, and this is a resolution to recommend, or this is a resolution for conditional approval of this particular, of the plan for this development. I'll wait till the clock stops.